welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Football Tailgate here on the Hoosier.com. I am the coach Shannon Griffith, and I thank you for joining us here this evening. As always, if you could, on the YouTube channel, if you could like, comment, and of course, subscribe, definitely help us there. If you could go and do that. If you want to participate in the chat and you got a question, by all means, please feel free to throw out a question or two and we'll try to get it answered for you. And took a little hiatus last week to kind of recharge my batteries, so forth. And we're heading into the end month of June here, and things are going to start flipping to the July period. And that is a dead period for recruiting and such. But what I want to do tonight is to go over some of this recruiting, what's been happening, talk about some of the big commitments they got, maybe what they still have out there for this 26 class. Because right now, you know, they're sitting pretty good overall with this class. And I think that's going to ultimately be a class that we're going to be able to talk about as the year goes on, and who they may get, who they, you know, might not get, as it pertains to some last minute pickups and things of that nature. But for the month of June, it has been a whirlwind of the month for Indiana in terms of just the overall commitment list that they've enjoyed getting commitments from this month. They've done a great job, not just with the in-state talent, but out-of-state talent, of course. And then you look at it from the standpoint of the amount of camps that they've had some 27 kids get some offers that have come to campus and that, and so forth with those things. And they've done just a really good job of solidifying their recruiting class, picking up some, losing one. And we talked about that before. You know, the hardest thing about these kids is the commitments here right to this time is just verbal in nature, and they can decommit and go somewhere else. Like Indiana's had a couple kids that they flipped from other schools. Jay Timmons, the 4-star out of the Pittsburgh area, he committed to Florida State and flipped his commitment there. And he his dad was a legacy there, big time player for them, and then in the NFL for a number of years. So you can't fault a kid when he's had so many times in and around Tallahassee, and he gets the opportunity to follow in dad's footsteps, so to speak. He gets an opportunity, and he ultimately makes that decision to flip his commitment. And that's kind of what happens with 17, 18-year-old kids when you think about it. I hope in time we'll get some more guidance and direction from the way this is going to go forward with the College Sports Commission and the rev sharing, and when can they sign a kid and things of that nature. It would be nice for them to have an earlier signing period than December. Now that you're dealing with money and things of that nature, it almost needs to have one sometime prior to camp starting in July. And then you can lock in the class and worry about what you can need to get on the back end, as opposed to trying to keep kids all the way from now through the month of December. But again, Jay Timmons, 4-star, Pittsburgh, tough one to lose, very good football player. And he's made his commitment to Florida State, following his footsteps. So you really can't fault him for that one overall. But then Indiana comes right back and gets Chase Herrera, quarterback out of California. We had talked about with Zach Browning, the last Hoosier Football Tailgate, that Will Fahey was a prime target for Indiana at the time. And things were trending in Indiana's direction. But the young man instead had Oregon to visit and Ohio State, who had not offered him. So he goes on a visit and Ohio State offers him. And then you find out that's his kind of quote dream school. And therefore Indiana loses out on Will to Ohio State. But in the meantime, Iowa's commitment that they had wrapped up Chase Herrera, he decommits from Iowa last week at some point in time. And when this thing went down with Fahey and Indiana was assured that he was going to go to Ohio State, they made a pitch for Chase and got him to commit to Indiana. And his video is up on the Hoosier.com of me breaking down Chase's film and such. So you can get over there if you want to take a quick look at that. May have time tonight to throw some up to show too as well. So, but that's the type of thing that Indiana's been able to do with this class. We're going to take a look at this class overall here in a moment and go kind of from A to Z with what they have in the hopper right now. We're going to go over an article Zach Browning wrote on those that are still out there and that Indiana may have an opportunity to pick up between now and whenever, as well as with this class, and just kind of give a good picture of Indiana's recruiting, because once we get to July, you've got that July dead period approaching on July 1, where the recruiting really takes a back seat for all practical purposes. You got high school kids that will ultimately be going into his opportunity with high school, football getting ready to start as well. I mean, for some high schools, they'll be starting class here in about a couple of weeks after the first with everything. And yet that's the thing that is crazy that we're at that time. Yeah, Todd, I think that is kind of the conclusion everybody had with this flip of Timmons being a legacy there at Florida State, and can't fault a kid for that. And whoever, you never know, though. You can always keep a good relationship, because things don't go well at Florida State and he wants to leave and transfer. Hey, that door is always open, and you never close a door on a kid that you've had invested time and energy into. So, yeah, that's the thing. You don't want to close any opportunities that you get on the rebound per se, especially of a kid's talent like Timmons. So, but the dead period approaches July 1. And like I said, the high school kids will turn their attention to the season, their senior season. Indiana will be gearing up for their final days of their summer conditioning with the strength staff. Maybe get a little time prior to camp starting. And, just same thing with the coaches. The camp season will end. The coaches will probably get some time off in the month of July, and they'll probably be back at it around the 23rd, 24th of the month, or maybe sooner, preparing for the season. And that's the biggest thing, is that's where we're at in this process right now. And that's why you got to kind of put the recruiting to bed a little bit until you get into the actual season and game day visits and who is appearing on campus and things of that magnitude. But it's hard to believe that few weeks here, we're going to be talking about the season full bore for Indiana and Kurt Signetti and their staff, the second year at the helm. And everyone is ready to go and pumped for all that. So it's not, it's one of those things that you're looking at it from a different perspective, excitement and interest from that perspective because of what transpired a year ago. And everybody's attitude and mindset has changed, and everybody's looking forward to the start of the season. And understandably so, with everything on tap for this next season. We talked about where the Hoosiers stand and things of that nature. We'll get to that here in a second, but it's a big month for June that Indiana has had. I know that the in-state high school coaches, I think, have been very happy with what Indiana has done. They did lose the Kobe Cherry kid to Purdue. That's Tyler Cherry's younger brother, who was a beast of a defensive end and pretty darn good baseball player as well. He made a commitment to Purdue, which is not a surprise of that particular commitment. So, but we're going to look at this class here. I'm going to kind of start getting to that page. There we go. How about now? There we go. I don't know why that button was hit. Sorry about that, guys. But I appreciate the shout out there, Robert, making sure that I was aware that the dummy hit the wrong button. But their class, where they're at in terms of average on where their kids set in terms of their 3-star, 4-star, they're at 87-23. That's a pretty high in the rankings with the kids that they've brought in talent wise. Almost a quarter of the class is from the state of Indiana, which I think is important. And I know Coach Signetti has made that pretty well known that they want to start in the backyard and work outward. And I think you can say they've done that overall. But right now they have a total of, I believe, 18 total commits overall. I don't see this class probably not growing any more than 7 at the most, 5 or 6, somewhere in that neighborhood because of where they're at. So they're, if signing day was tomorrow, they're about 75% done with the 2026 class. So, but we get to look at some of these guys that they have. Remember Gabe Hill, defensive lineman out of Naperville, Illinois, 4-star kid, very good player, really good player with him. Henry Olinger, the linebacker out of Columbus, he's a 4-star kid. And I know Ohio State has not made any moves yet in terms of offering the young man. So I do feel Indiana's in pretty good shape with that. Cavante Hugan, another kid that they were able to flip earlier out of Sarasota. We talked pretty good about him a week or two ago. Linebacker, really good player. Kazmir Hicks, the young man out of Decatur Central, a cornerback. He's a really good player as well in this class. And I think that is one of those really good in-state talented kids. You see him here with 1 4-star in the rankings, and that's an on 3 4-star ranking, and then pretty good there across the board. But he was a big pickup for Indiana. Samuel Simpson, a kid out of Wisconsin, River Falls, the first commit of the 2026 class. So that's pretty interesting that here's a young man that made a commitment all the way back in February. He's made his commitment in February, and that young man has stayed true and fast with his commitment. So that in itself is pretty remarkable that had that early on commitment. We talked about the Campbell kid a week ago as well out of Georgia, really good running back that they picked up from down there. And, I think he's going to be a talented kid to watch. And then, of course, Chase, that we've talked about, the young man out of San Diego, California. He was an Iowa commit, came back into the fold for Indiana. Trevor Gibbs, a kid in the northern part of Indiana, up in the region, Crown Point. That kid, I think, is going to be perhaps one of the bright spots of this class, because I don't think too many realize how good this young man is. He is a really good tight end and a really good linebacker. And he's a kid to keep an eye on, because I think he's going to be one of their better commitments as we go through here. Young man out of East St. Louis, the Rupert kid, wide receiver, good-looking kid on that. Smith kid out of Franklin Community High School, another D-line. P.J. McFarland, very interesting young man. And what he is a tight end out of Ohio, a big tight end, 6'5", 205. He's a young man that I do think in this class, they got a couple good looking tight ends. Savage, the linebacker out of Kentucky, down there in Wildcat country and Cardinal country. This young man is a football player. I'm telling you, he is a football player. I love this kid on film. Jadon Williams, another linebacker out of Massillon, Ohio, a very tradition-rich program. You got the white kid as well, another D lineman out of Maryland, out there by Baltimore. Mondu, the big tackle, 6'7", 315, also out of Wisconsin. Coach Bobstead, he's gone right to his backyard, or used to be his backyard, and brought in some of those Wisconsin boys. And the success that they had with Wisconsin with those type of kids is pretty well known, and he's going to continue to bring those kids in here to Indiana. But he is a big-time player that I think Indy is going to be great to have. You can't coach size. 6'7", you can't coach. This kid is going to be a 370 type of kid when he gets it all said and done, or maybe even a little bit more with that frame. Parker Elmore. This is a name that you guys need to keep an eye on through the high school season. He's at Columbus North High School. This kid did not play last year. He ended up setting out last year. He played at Jennings County his sophomore year, and I do believe that year was cut short by injury. Football-wise, really good basketball player. Transferred to Columbus North and ended up setting out last season. I just did a video breakdown on him because I had a lot of questions of why would Indiana offer a kid who hasn't played for 2 years at a position he's never played. And, there was a lot of questioning as kind of why is that, or why did they make that, offer? Well, this kid had been talked about a lot his freshman and sophomore year out of Jennings County because of his athleticism, both in football and in basketball. And had he not been hurt and had played last year, more in that aspect of things, he would probably be one of those guys that would be a top tier ranked recruit in the state of Indiana. Now, I pointed out in the video of this young man why Indiana did what they did, because remember, Coach Signetti's entire career, for that most part, has been recruiting these type of kids like Parker, where he has to look and evaluate more things than just a football body. He has to take into account what is he like on a basketball court, things of that nature, and then being able to project, can that kid be a tight end and do what they want him to do in their offense? He's one of those kids that can be an attached tight end, off the ball tight end, or a spread out wide tight end. He's got that talent. So keep an eye on him this year in the state of Indiana from Columbus North and see if his season, he doesn't get more recognition as it goes on. CJ, that was a kid out of Center Grove, good size offensive lineman, 6'6", 325 pounds, out of one of the predominant high schools in Indiana. They're just turning out Big Ten player after Big Ten player here over the last few years. And this kid will, you know, he's going to be a real good one as well. And then the last kid they took and flipped as well was LaRon Dunes, a cornerback out of West Virginia at Cardinal Mooney High School out there in West Virginia. And you can see that kid is a really good wide receiver, DB type that they were able to pick up. Let's see here. Here are some of the kids that Indiana is waiting to hear about. I know Zach Browning over at the Hoosier.com. And before I get over to the Hoosier.com, pick up that $1 for the first month and 50% off for the rest of the first year. And you get all the coverage that you want there, videos, as well as written material on the Indiana Hoosiers from A to Z. But Zach Browning has done a great job, not only breaking some of these kids down that the Hoosiers have had, but they've done a great job of kids that have been in for camp in the 2027 class that Indiana is high on. And I actually made some, couple offers through the camp season. So they're already, hitting the ground running with that class. But the Guilford kid up here out of Fort Wayne, Northrop High School is a kid that is going to be making a decision here shortly. It's between Indiana and Ohio State. I would say probably leaning more towards Ohio State than anything in that regard. So we'll have to wait and see. Very talented kid. He would be a huge boost to the wide receiver group. Walker Bryson, another kid out of Georgia, looking to make his intentions known here in about another week. And you can see he's got offers, Tennessee, Kansas State, and some other ACAC programs. LeVar Keys, another one that Indiana was involved with. He is still committed to Penn State. So while they may have stopped overly pursuing him, there's still that option of possibly flipping a kid. Penn State just lost one of their biggest receivers this week when he flipped a commitment. The Fuchs kid, another big offensive lineman. He's out of Tennessee. I believe Kentucky is one of his biggest suitors, and Penn State as well are the primary targets for Jack, but a big kid, 6'8", 300. So you can see Indiana's gone for size, baby, on that offensive line. Cameron McCaney, a top 40 defensive lineman. You can see there, Indiana, Purdue, Louisville, Vanderbilt, and Illinois, 6'1", 315. So it'll be interesting to see how he shakes out in all this. Webb is another kid looking at the 4th of July commitment timetable. It looks like it's going to be between Indiana, Purdue, and potentially Florida State for him. You've got Johnson, a D lineman as well. Let's see here. A couple DBs that they're still looking at with Jamar Owens. He's got a visit to North Carolina and Georgia Tech. So he was a little late in getting out. He was just at Indiana the most recently. And at USC is kind of fiddling with him as well. And Cortez Redding, a top 300 recruit. And you can see some of this suitors that he has. But that article is over there at the Hoosier.com. And, get over there because Zach will have a has a really good handle of who Indiana is recruiting, and everything in that regard. I'm going to try to get some things here. Let's see if I can. I may have to reload this in a second. See if I can get the video up and running. Sometimes this stuff gets a little funky to show some of these kids, if we can, that Indiana's got in the hopper already. I wanted to show a little bit of the Hera kid, if we can. And let me see if I can, like I said, get this blown up that it can be seen. And let's take a quick look at him. Let's see here. Yeah, Tony, I think we are all kind of in that mode right now, as in Justin as well. It's going to be here before we know it as we roll in through this month of July. This is the kid that I was talking about, the Elmore kid, and you're going to see him here. We'll get through some of this with him, and then I'll switch over to Chase. This is they're in their underwear right now. All right, Tony, enjoy that meal. You can catch it always on the Hoosier.com and the YouTube page, but you'll get to see him run here a little bit and his routes, and you'll get to see, he's got that ability as a tight end that he can be in tight. He can split out. He's very athletic, and I'm anxious to see how he does this year. Down there at Columbus North. Interesting fact, the head coach at Columbus North played quarterback for me when I was the head coach at Manchester and running the show there offensively, and broke a bunch of passing records. So he's in good hands with a coach that understands ball. So, but here you get a sense where they're running 4 verts, and Elmore's aim spot is if this safety, and we call this center field closed, and he's going to run a bender route and get into the void, and the quarterback does a good job of throwing him open here. And you can see that he does have some really good football sense, playing some tight end. Quarterback at the other school. He was a good free safety as well. There he goes from being out wide back into the inside. Again, running a route where he's kind of the hot receiver here, based upon what that front line linebacker is doing, because they're reading that front side backer, and he steps up there and the quarterback pulls it and throws it. So that's a read play that they've got in it at Columbus North. So again, you kind of get the understanding that this kid is going to got a chance to be really good, even though he's not played a position. This is the Hera kid. Again, full video up on the Hoosier.com. But this is the throw. Watch this throw. Are you kidding me? Full sprint, throws a dime. You can see he's got pretty good mobility. He's always making in a position where he's making a play, keeps his eyes downfield. He's mobile enough to avoid the rush. Ideally, he wants to throw it. Another good throw. This is just pretty darn good accuracy, but really understanding what he's looking at and putting himself in a position to flick it out there and drop a dime in on the corner route. That was pretty good. Here's one, avoids the rush. And a great job of being on the scramble drill where the wide receiver that was short goes deep and they get a big play. The only thing I would say with him, he has the ball that hanging down towards the ground when he's scrambling, and it's a big, scary thing that can happen, and that ball gets knocked out. And you can see him here just lofted up for a nice touchdown. Here you get to see him move around and make a play in space. And again, just doing some acrobat things, but he's got to learn to secure that ball a little bit. It's flinging all over the place. Loaf of bread right there. So he is the newest commitment that Indiana picked up from after he flipped this past week from Iowa to Indiana. This is the one kid that I think is Gabe Hill. This young man is a talented kid that they've got. You're going to see him playing in the 3 technique, 1 technique up in Naperville. This is really good football. So he's in a very, very tough conference, and he's very quick off the ball. He's got a lot of power and does a lot of good things in their defensive scheme there at Naperville. But I do think he's another kid to keep an eye on as they go through the year, and hopefully Indiana can hang on to this kid because he will be a kid that will be a great player, CJ West type of player. He's kind of that body type as well. He's a very good player that Indiana has got a commitment from already for the 2026 class. Here he just busts the guy back, but he stays on the run, and then you can see him run there. That's pretty darn good for a big fella. Right there, that's really good when you got a kid that can run like that and make a play down the field. And this is the kid out of Crown Point that I wanted to show everyone. Let's see if I can. That I want everybody to kind of be aware of. He's a tight end, linebacker type, but you're going to watch him here. And this kid, I think, is going to be one of the bright spots of this recruiting class because I think he's a stud. I just love the way the kid plays. He's got a good motor. As a linebacker, you can see him read and react. You know, he moves his hips well. I just really think this kid is a big-time recruit for him up out of the region. And I know Coach Haynes is excited that they got him because, big fella got rocked. So, again, these kids are what Indiana's been able to pick up. And the last one I'll show you out of this class that I really like, and I'm not trying to say that this kid's better than that kid or anything like that because they're all darn good football players. The Olinger kid is a big-time player, 4-star player. But this is the kid out of Kentucky that Indiana got, linebacker. Whoops, I'm sorry. That's not the one. Where'd you go there? Cavante. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Yeah. This is a kid out of Kentucky. This kid, just love the way he plays the linebacker position too. He is, a bigger, maybe even more athletic Aiden Fisher type. But, when he makes a commitment to go make a play, he goes, makes the play. He makes good decisions. Here he's coming on a blitz. Huge tackle, but you just kind of, he grows on you when you watch him on tape and you get excited for him because of what he brings to the table. Look at that. I mean, that's a great read. That's a kid just getting shot out of the cannon and lighting him up, boom. There's a couple on here that he's rocking kids. So the Savage kid is just a really good football player. So I'm excited about this class overall, both in their athleticism, as well as, the position needs that they've met. Now, it's got a big defensive flavor, which is important because of what they're going to be hit, not only from last year, but even this year. at key positions like linebacker in the secondary, because you don't know what Pons will do. You know, Fisher's going to be gone after this year. So some of these transfer guys, they could be one and done type of players, you know, Gundy and some of them that came to Indiana, they got in the transfer portal. So, you know, this class on top of what they brought in through the transfer portal, you know, gives you a great feeling heading into the season, into their summer camp here in a few weeks, because they can be focused on what needs to be done at hand. The recruiting will take care of itself. They've got the biggest recruiting group there at the football office that will be the ones that will keep tabs on their commits, and also those that they may be waiting to hear something from. You know, everything's changed in the world of college football. You know, you got a dedicated scouting department now with these kids. And once they get past a time of year like this dead period, the coaches will, focus will be on the season, and those guys in the scouting staff will take over and in charge of not only the 26th class, but as well as 27th and 28 class, because that's where focus point will be overall. But really excited for this class, really excited where Indiana's at overall. I got a feeling that this football team, if they can remain healthy, they got some big time pickups through the portal. Mendoza, of course, being the biggest one. I do think they've got a great wide receiver room. I do think they've got 2 legit tight ends. I think they've got 3 legit running backs again that can be a factor in everything they do. It may be the best offensive line Indiana will line up with at the start of the year if all things go accordingly. And then when you flip the defense, what they lost and what they picked up, man, they could be just as good. If I had to guess, they're going to be question marks still probably at the linebacker position. You just don't lose a player like Walker and not have some, concerns at that spot because the kid, had played so much football. But their secondary, I think, is going to be dynamite. But when we move into July, we'll start getting into the 2025 season, schedule breakdown, positional breakdown, depth chart, things of that magnitude, looking at the teams that they'll start playing for the 2025 season to kind of give everyone a snapshot of who's going to be coming into Memorial Stadium and those type of things. So really appreciate you guys joining me here this evening. Again, remember, if you can, get over to Hoosier.com and get that subscription, $1 for the first month, 50% off for the rest of the season. And as well, if you can, hit our affiliates. Remember, BetUS up to 125% tacked on to your first deposit with BetUS, and appreciate their affiliation. But if you can get to those affiliates, it helps us out here at the Tailgate and the Hoosier.com. And we try to get you things that potentially you would like to have, or get in touch with just different types of gear like Fanatics and Fans Edge as well. So thank you for all that. Thank you for being here this evening. I hope everyone is having an enjoyable summer and staying cool, because we've been hit by this heat over the last few weeks with temperatures and humidity. So stay hydrated out there. We'll catch you next week. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on the Hoosier.com.